just there is a vacancy, I just want to, which is the director of the soil and water. Do I need to reach out?
So I talked with the chairman about that, just earlier. So my understanding is that it's the chairman that makes the recommendation and makes the choices as far as the committee members. So,
I didn't know if there was just having a discussion.
yeah, so
Because he doesn't know the guy from Adam, does he?
No, he said, so part of the discussion today was the thoughts of, do we want to put it to the new director? And as long as that's okay with the committee, then either he asked myself or for you to reach out to them and see if he's interested.
I think it makes sense.
I can tell you, I spoke with him when I was talking to him about Laura, and he said he's open to the idea, because I said, we don't actually meet that often, but he says he's got no problem sitting in on the committee. So if you want his contact information, I can send it over.
Yeah, I used to work for a sponsor.
Oh, right. I do have his contact information, so I'll send it over to you.
Great, thanks. Other than that, I believe, the discussion is now about a request for new connections.
Yeah. So new projects come along. Amador, so I'm not sure if everyone had remembered there quite a while ago, Amador had approached, at least approached the town, never formally approached the county or anything of that nature, but prior to the county moving forward with its sewer work, Amador had approached the town as far as doing a mixed-use development, generally speaking, at the intersection of 9H and 66.
Town common.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My apologies. Yep, my apologies. They went back, kind of put it on hold temporarily, if you would, or went away. In the meantime, the county moved forward as far as its sewer project. So they have now resurrected the project. They're interested in coming back. Obviously, one of the big things that they would need for their project they're interested in is to see what their options are as far as utilities, specifically water and sewer, whether they would have to do something on their own or whether the county and the town of Greenport would be interested in taking on their water and sewer. So reason that it's a joint meeting with Greenport as well as the members of the committee is, for those that may not be familiar, the county has two contracts with the town of Greenport. One contract is for Mount Ida, where Mount Ida produces the water for the Commerce Center. So the county has the collector and distribution system, but the actual source of the water comes from Greenport. And there's an intermunicipal agreement between the county and Greenport regarding the purchase of that water for its needs within the Commerce Center. The second one is associated with the sewer, and that currently, that intermunicipal agreement that was generated at the time that transmission main was put in, that had a cap on it of 75,000 gallons per day maximum, of which we're only sitting at about, I think it was like 25, 30 maybe.
Yeah, I
something
checked the numbers before I came. I think you guys are right around 40 for an
40
average this year.
This year, yeah. I know it's up since the nursing home, their consumption has been up.
Yeah.
But basically there's been a cap there, but in both instances, as far as both intermunicipal agreements, both the water and the sewer, it is required that if the county would be considering to have anybody out of district connect into that or expand the district, that not only does it have to gain approval of the county, but it also has to gain approval by the town of Greenport regarding those intermunicipal agreements. So Amador is requesting a total of 80,000 gallons. That's what they projected their flows to be. So that would be 80,000 gallons on water, which that may change, as well as 80,000 gallons on sewer. I would anticipate that quite likely there would be some sort of irrigation systems and water loss and so forth. I would anticipate that water usage number to go up versus the sewer number being about 80,000. But be that as it may, the first step in this, and the reason for the committee meeting as a whole, and again, to have Greenport at the meeting as well, is recognizing that there's the intermunicipal agreement in place. The county couldn't necessarily go back to Amador and say, yeah, we're all for it, and obviously not bring in Greenport into the fold. And rather than have two different meetings to have all of the discussions at the same time, in concept, and again, it's not tying the town of Greenport, nor is it tying the county into any obligations at this point, but at least to go back to the entity, which is Amador, to indicate that in concept, we are interested in allowing you to connect in. Granted, there's all kinds of due diligence that still has to take place. On the water end, there's due diligence that they'll have to do on their dollar, right? Preparing reports that would identify capacity, ability for that system to continue to operate, what improvements may need to be done to make sure that it's in compliance with the state regulations, okay? As well as any additional taking water withdrawal that has to take place at DTC's level, okay? Similarly, on the wastewater end is that they'll have to do due diligence, number one, looking at the county system as far as the ability of the pump stations and the force main to handle the additional flow. And then also taking a look at Greenport, recognizing that can the headwaters of the sewer plant take care of that system as well.
They'll probably require some sort of equalization or something like it too.
Right. And that's all part of due diligence, right? But we, as the county, didn't think it was appropriate for the county to say yay and then for Greenport to say no. But we thought it'd be better to have a joint meeting so that way we can hear what concerns that Greenport may have or what expectations Greenport may have, as well as any expectations that we as the county would have. Because again, I'll prepare correspondence back to Amador indicating what those expectations are, at a minimum. So again, at the county, at a minimum, we're going to want them to look at water side would be distribution, storage, fire capabilities, so on and so forth. And we already know that there's some issues out there now.
Sure.
Okay. But in addition to that, on the wastewater end, we're going to want them to do a hydraulic analysis as far as the existing pump stations, their capabilities. Yes, they can be improved. Yes, there are improvements to increase capacities and so forth. And they'll have to do all of those studies and then submit those before the county would then consider moving into an intermunicipal agreement. Because at some point, there's going to need to be some sort of negotiations, with them. Because if there are improvements that need to be made, one would anticipate that they would be responsible for those improvements. But then long-term, there's also the concept of what their thoughts are. They're looking to become potentially an in-district user. So what does that mean? Because they'll need to take a look at what the operation and maintenance costs are, because obviously those would be incurred, by some entity other than them. So that negotiation could then be capital improvements versus long-term operation and maintenance. Just things to consider. But like I said, first and foremost, it's non-binding at this point, but at least it would give them the indication that confirming, yes, we're interested. Now, on the county's end, the county had always anticipated that there would be some growth either within the district itself or just outside of the district as far as adjacent properties. And so this is one of those opportunities. Now, again, being at 80,000 gallons, that exceeds the intermunicipal agreement with Greenport. So again, Greenport needs to think, okay, is it going to be okay with a higher cap as far as that intermunicipal agreement? Later on down the road, we'll have to tackle revising or updating that intermunicipal agreement. Because that's basically where we stand with this. Rob, anything on? That's background, so.
That was just background.
That's the background, foreground, middle ground. I mean, the reality is, we could give a conditional approval based on, I don't know if they need to come back to this.
I think that they would. I would anticipate, so process at a minimum,
Yeah.
Rob, I would tend to think that they would go away, they would do their due diligence, right? They would come back to the committee, just like we did with, Greenport and so forth, or actually with Stewart's, my apologies, with Stewart's.
Yeah.
And we would review the information and then talk about what those appropriate negotiations and then make a recommendation to the actual committee. That's the way it was dealt with when we were dealing with the sewer line. You know, this committee did a lot of the legwork, and then it just went to Public Works with a recommendation to proceed.
Just for the record, can you explain to the people that you watch the meeting what they're looking to build?
I'm sorry, good point, yeah. So, I mentioned 80,000 gallons per day. So, the plan that I've provided to each one of you provides a concept plan. So this is all that's been initially received by the county is this concept plan that Amador wants to move forward with. And they are proposing to do this in a phased approach. So not all of this is all going to be built at one time. They're looking to do this as a 6-phase project. The reason I gave you 2 sheets, most of the information is the same on both of them. But the first one provides a nice overview that actually has everything nicely labeled as far as the various items. The second one provides the actual phasing plan. So looking at the phasing plan, the first phase that's being conceived is looking at 128 apartment units that will be constructed just to the west side of 9H.
Would there be a residential rate that's different? Because right now, everything's commercial that's out there.
Yeah, so that would be discussion. Right now, I would anticipate there's only one rate that we're paying as the county to the town of Greenport. I would anticipate there would just continue to be one rate. That's at least in concept. I haven't really.
What do they pay for the stuff that's out of district? Like the Stewart's versus what's in district?
Stewart's was, it was at least 1.5 times, if not 2 times. The rate, as far as that's concerned.
I think the two of them make sense. So
So they get invoiced from the county and they get invoiced from the town?
No, so my apologies. So intermunicipal agreement between the county and the town on wastewater is there's a master meter right at the headworks of Greenport, so that we're reading the total flow. So what happens is that, and James, correct me if I'm wrong, there are 2 components that we have to pay as part of the billing. Number one, at the end of the year, we look at the entire flow going into town of Greenport. The county pays, if you would, based on the flow. So let's just say it's, I'm going to say 15%. I think that's the max, not even.
For the wastewater.
Yeah, for the wastewater. I think if there's 15% of the overall capacity of the town of Greenport's plant, then the town or the county is paying 15% of that operation and maintenance. However, the 75,000 gallons, if that represents, let's say, 20% of the overall volume that's approved, we're paying that portion of the capital debt. And that's the way the agreement is set up. So there are 2 components. And what we do as the county, we have established a rate, okay, that we know will cover those costs. And we're charging that rate to each one of the customers in district and out of district on a per 1,000 gallon basis. Okay, but they're only getting 1 bill from the county. They're not getting anything from the town.
Oh, and out for the whole system is Greenport?
Correct. And it's similarly with the water. There's 1 master meter and it's done in a similar manner that way, where the county is paying 1 or quarterly payments on the sewer, monthly payments, I believe, on the water, if I remember correctly. But on a quarterly basis, we as the county are doing individual, because each one of the facilities has its own meter. So the county is actually going out, doing the meter readings and then billing through the treasurer's office. Okay.
So right now we're at daily flow is, you said about 20,000 gallons?
I'm sorry, 40, my apologies, 40.
Well, these guys are looking for another 80. That's what we went in, was 15% was
Well,
sold to the plant.
yeah, I forgot what the,
You're averaging about 500,000, 600,000 a day.
yeah, but the total capacity is 1.3, if I remember correctly.
1.35 is our permit,
Is your
and then our design is 2 million.
Right.
Oh, so it's a design capacity, not actual capacity or permit.
Operational is based on actual flow. Capital is based on our portion that we have allocated, the 70 in the original
Yeah,
contract, 75,000 gallons of the 1.3.
of the permit.
So the plant can handle the additional capacity.
The numbers I looked at, I think we could handle it, especially on a nice and calm weather. My issue, as I brought up with you before, is the
DEC
is
is
the
gonna
rain.
make you equalize the flow coming in before you send it.
That was my question.
Either way,
The DEC.
that's just what they're going to do.
Right, and so
That'll be on
that'll be on that.
Amador to provide some sort of equalization
And
that'll work during storm events.
not to bring up a sore subject, which is the Hudson thing, but you're gonna need sewer extension permit from DEC, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Welcome to the
DEC,
party.
right, so DEC is a huge part of this discussion and what's actually gonna be required, because absolutely, they're gonna look at this as a whole. So their DEC, quite honestly, is, I know DEC is already gonna dictate, a flow analysis on our system, which is pretty straightforward. But they're gonna require analysis, even what's taking place in Greenport, obviously. Making sure that not only the plant, but what impact might that have regarding the collection system in the town of Greenport?
Which will be nothing because it doesn't attach to the collection system.
Well, right, but that short section right at the head of it, so, yeah. But again,
That's where the equalization's coming from.
but that's where, right, but that's, again, there's not a doubt in my mind that's what DEC will require.
Right. Well,
Because that's what they required when the system was first, put when the county system was first put in and considered connecting into Greenport way back in 2019.
Is that in your speedies permit?
The county's connection.
The sewer extensions?
I did bring my permit with me. I don't know if it's in there or not.
Cause it's not in mine, that's why I had to get a consent order, so that way we could formalize it. Instead of just updating my speedies permit, that's. the
I
mechanism
don't
we use.
believe it was never in ours before. That was one of the problems.
As far as the sewer extensions, yeah, I don't believe it is.
I mean, it's in part 750 or something.
Exactly, and that's where DEC always goes back. They go back to that part 750. And that's the part that they identify, specifically as it pertains to residential,
Find that out with
the falls.
the falls.
2,500 gallons a day.
They've never enforced that.
Well, they never did it anywhere in the state until
Okay.
the EPA got them. Now, everybody's in the same boat.
Correct.
There's some, just a little bigger boat than others.
So, so that's the first phase, and we just, and again, they haven't provided time frames of exactly, you know, are they gonna propose construction in a year, 2 years? They haven't identified that. But again, so that's the first, phase of the project. The second phase of the project involves, condo units, a total of 72 condo units, within multiple buildings that is located just to the south side of that other residential portion of the project. Phase 3 represents the first commercial part of the project that initially they've identified as being some sort of a fast food restaurant and potentially a hotel with as many as 101 rooms located within it. Again, that's all located on the west side. So that at that point, as far as the first 3 phases, that would take care of all of the anticipated construction and development on the easterly part of 9H. Phase 4 would then be a senior apartment, which would be all rentals. They're looking at a total of 60 units for seniors, dedicated to seniors. That's located just to the east of 9H. Fifth one would then be an additional commercial use on the east side, which they are looking to do a restaurant, conference center, spa. That would also do potential weddings and different events such as that. The last one would be condos, which they've identified as affordable. Now, again, what that means is a little gray at this point. but a total of 64 units of what are considered to be affordable condos. And that's the southerly section, and that's the last phase of their proposed construction.
So all 6 phases is the 80,000.
Yes, all 6
Okay.
phases, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't provide a breakdown of each one, each phase. Obviously, as they do their detailed engineering reports, they would break it down as well as the timing. But ultimately, what they're looking for is the 80,000, which is inclusive of all 6
Everything.
phases.
Over how long of a period?
They have not identified. Yeah, they have not identified what that anticipated development timeframe is going to be.
And they haven't been to Clovis planning board.
No, because they wanted to, so they're looking at all of their, they want to look at their options. So they want to look at obviously water and sewer, because if they don't get it from us, as far as county and Greenport, then they'll need to consider, do they do something on the private end? And that in and of itself could really
You're in
change.
a wellhead protection zone. so-
Correct. But that could really change how that is approached. If they had to do something on.
They'd have to buy the water rights from the town.
I have a question before we move forward on this. Would it make sense to talk to DEC before we give any kind of a conditional approval? First,
Well,
to
it's not-
find out where.
Well, it's not an approval. So this, right, so the,
No, that was the word I heard before. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, so this is not an approval. This is just an agreement in concept that the town and the town and the county are interested in entertaining
I understand that.
the opportunity of them connecting. That allows them to now do their due diligence. As part of that due diligence, they have to talk to the DEC.
Okay, so DEC will, because our main goal is to protect town of Greenport.
Absolutely.
That's it, first and foremost, TOJ. So if there's any issue with Mr. Malcolm as to what we're going through because of our stormwater issues that we've had previously in the past, and I certainly wouldn't want the cart to be before the horse on this.
Right, I mean,
You know what I mean?
yeah, in theory, not that it would happen, but in theory, DEC could come back and say, no, we're not gonna allow it.
Right.
Until Greenport takes care of whatever issues Greenport may have. I don't know what they are, I don't know if there are, but that's a possibility.
And that's when we would say to, Mr. Amador, DEC said, we can't do this unless this is done. Right,
And that's part of negotiation.
Gotcha.
perhaps.
okay. But I just don't want, I
Right,
don't want anybody to get hit with a hammer.
right, and that's what I'm saying, this is not an approval saying, we now approve you to tie in tomorrow with eighty
Oh, I know
thousand.
that.
By
I
any
know
means,
that.
this is allowing them to begin their due diligence process. But we didn't want to just do that on our end. If the town of Greenport said, you know what, we're just not interested in making money.
How do you feel about it, Jim?
No, I feel that we should proceed, like Ray is saying, let them do their due diligence, let them look into things, and then we'll get information that way.
Do we feel that we need to speak with DEC ourselves prior? No, just let them come at us with what they have.
I
Okay.
think you're better off letting DEC explain to the developer what they're gonna have to do than people want to.
Perfect.
Bring
Okay.
the bad
And-
news.
Yeah, and so.
Makes sense to me, but thank you. It's an
Right,
education for me.
and so to your point, so DEC is not blindsided, okay? I don't mind reaching out to DEC, to Jamie Malcolm, carbon copying James and saying, oh, by the way, just so you're aware, we have been approached by a developer that wants to connect into our systems. We're going to allow them to do their due diligence. So by the way, you'll be hearing from them as well as the town of Greenport and ourselves.
He probably
regarding
already
this
knows
project.
it. It's
Oh, I'm
been
sure he does.
critical.
Yeah, I'm sure he
No,
does.
Jamie, it's
But,
critical.
but again, the one thing that I've learned with Jamie is
Yeah.
keep them in the loop. If you
Yes.
keep them in the loop and you keep the communication lines open, it's a
Yep.
little more favorable.
Yes.
So,
Sure, we call me too, so.
so is this number a realistic number, this 80,000 gallons? I mean, how many users are on the system now that are generating for it? I mean, this seems like a low number to me with all this, with 6 phases of development.
Who developed the number? Is this a DEC number or is this a private engineer number?
This is a private engineer number that was used in a DEC
If
format.
the DEC number, it's twice what it really is. If it's a private one, it's probably fairly close.
Right.
The LA group, right?
The LA group worked with Pat Prendergast to put these numbers together. But now, my understanding, just to let everybody know, I've been contacted by CT Mail. So Amador has brought in a different engineering firm to do the due diligence. to kind of take it over from what Pat has initially done as far as the concept of 80,000 gallons a day. So my understanding, at least in initial discussions with CT Mail, is that they'll be doing the brunt of the work for Canada.
You're talking a total of 120,000 gallons right now.
Potentially coming,
80,000 coming in, but you're pretty. For 75, so you're talking 155 total. Which for the sewer plant, I don't think it's a big deal as long as it's not raining.
Mhm.
But for the water, if I'm gonna have to check, because I remember the flow study that was done.
Right.
On that.
right, so they'll need to do, yeah, so they'll need to, again, part of the due diligence would be, they're gonna request information from us as well as the town, and we do have some of the information out, Ida, but not all of it, but again, your water taking permit, examples of making sure that they have that, along with any past studies. They're gonna wanna come out and do an investigation and do a walkthrough of the facility, but yeah, they have to look at all of that.
I mean, you do have other wells. There's another well that's probably 200 feet past the pump houses.
Right.
And then there's also another one further down that you never find it in the woods, but it's there.
Right, but my point would be, if they feel that they need to utilize those wells, and they need to conduct pump tests and so forth,
Then it's
that's on them.
groundwater study.
That's just on them.
We'll draw it out.
That's gonna be a big one.
Well, this is a big project, even at 80,000, if they went out on their own, they'd still have to do the same thing.
I mean, how many acres is this?
Total.
50, 60? It's gotta be all that.
Yeah, at least that. I did have that number, and my apologies, I didn't bring it with me. But I thought it was well over 80 acres. If I remember correctly. But yeah, even if you think about that, yeah, there are big dollar amounts associated with that. But even if they just didn't come to the town and the county, they'd have to do that on their own.
Well, there is a study. You got the original one with the 16 wells on it. That's their location. And some of the stuff from Barrow didn't do that one. And you got the stuff from Kaiser, which county developed that site. County doesn't. They didn't overdo it.
Sure,
They tested it.
I just eyeballed it through the 90s.
And, part of the other item with this is, so we at the county were undertaking a new, storage tank project for the Commerce Center. This,
That's my next question.
This-
There's gonna be an additional one to this.
right, so no, I would not anticipate there would be an additional tank. However,
You think that one would tie into it though?
yeah, it definitely would, because it's all part of the same
Same loop,
system
right.
as far as the loop. But again, as we talk about negotiations, obviously if that tank size has to be increased, someone's gonna have to pay for
Well, I mean, are
What's
you,
the tank size you're looking at now?
it. 300?
So
I mean,
actually,
these guys aren't
I
gonna
wouldn't
need
want
their,
it much bigger.
these guys aren't gonna need their own bubble tank on site?
No,
How are you gonna get the head
from the county system.
from Mount Ida?
Our tank location is located just to the east of the airport. There's a hillside east of the airport where the shooting range is.
Yeah,
That's where you're gonna get your head.
okay.
You're talking 300,000, so you're still talking, 2.5 days worth of water sitting in that tank. At 300,000 gallons.
Right, but but you still have to take a look at fire. Again, the 300,000 takes into consideration not only average daily flow, peak demand, emergency storage, 1-day storage, as well as fire. Right, so all of those are put into the calculation as far as that size. So they would have to take a look based on this to see whether that needs to be increased and by how much. But that's, yeah, so when we're looking at grades, Rob, so elevation wise, I think the highest point within the existing system is rural water right now, or West Kent, one of the two,
Yeah.
The,
highest elevation.
It's right across the hill that.
Yeah. Or maybe it's even the tent right next, it's, what's the tent place next to?
Or not,
Centel.
Centelli, thank you. Yeah, so it's either rural water or Kentucky, one of the two, but, and these are well down gradient.
There's the highest.
And there's a 12-inch line that goes in this general area. So again, distribution wise, again, they'll have to take a look at it and they'll have to do a flow study. And Hayes and Sawyer to make sure that, you know, we have enough or enough flow volume available to them. But with that 12-inch line, I don't anticipate that being a problem.
You said there's an existing tank?
No, there's a new tank that we're proposing.
Oh, okay.
And its location is going to be east of,
The airport. That's still not a problem.
and we still have to go back to FAA.
Okay.
Yep.
It'd be nice to red and white check it though.
Right.
So. Okay. Is there, well, I mean, are we making a recommendation or are we motioning something or
Yeah, so
do they really want, do they want something formal from us?
yeah, they're requesting
They
at
want a
least,
formal informality.
allowing them to continue to consider utilizing this as a water. Then the fact that both the town of Greenport and the town of
Open to the discussion of providing with water and sewer utilities
in the amount of 80,000 gallons of that.
and up in the begin their due diligence, I guess, right?
And then just if you would, in addition to that, if you could allow, as part of the recommendation, having the county engineering department provide them and their engineer formal correspondence regarding expectations on the due diligence.
You know that, Kelly?
Yep.
Motion,
I'll move it.
second,
So,
all in favor? Okay, so moved.
Thank you.
So James, we'll be in touch and then we can bring George into the fold as well, as far as that goes. But my goal is when I send this back to them, generally speaking, I want to let them know of what some of the expectations are. So they're not only looking at it on their, of what they're going to need to do for their infrastructure, but obviously they're looking at our infrastructure as a whole. But what the county has, as well as what the town of Greenport has. Okay, sounds good. And the nice thing, it's on their dime.
That's it.
Nothing happens.
My dude don't say yes to nothing unless I got it.
We do.
That's for 80,000.
Yep.
Business,
Yeah, the only other business that I had a question for the town of Greenport. So Columbia County, we're entering our budget time or timeframe. I was just wondering for 2025, does the town of Greenport anticipate any changes as far as its rates or
Yes.
or anything of that nature?
We do.
So, if you have an anticipated rate structure increase or whatever that may be, just email that to me. So that way I can incorporate it into the upcoming 2025 budget for
I will do that.
the district.
and then if we have to do a rate increase,
Right, then we'll have to meet as.
we can do it before, 2 days before the bills go out.
Exactly.
Yeah, I will get that to you.
The 2022, my understanding that's supposed to be cut next week.
Oh, thank you very
Okay,
much.
yeah, this is gonna, yes, that,
Right.
because Mike Torch is like hammering me.
Yeah, so my,
Heard it,
yeah,
heard it.
I just needed to confirm with the comptroller that it wasn't cut and it was not. So he said, they'll get it processed next week.
Fantastic.
He's out until this week.
All right, thank you.
New business, other business, adjourn, 11:36.
And then Rob, I'll get that information.
I'll make it.
George made a
Oh, for
motion.
Dylan. We do motions to adjourn?
Yes,
When he gets here.
we'll put John for a second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you all.
Awesome.